Welcome everybody back to Friar Talk. Today we're going to go live, talk about these two most recent series that could have been sweeps. They ended up taking a couple series wins, so it's overall a positive thing. But I think it's a little bit frustrating when you look at both game threes in this past week where you just don't come away with the sweep. So we're going to talk about that, kind of like the ups and downs of it, of course. And actually, we got some trade information. I mean, we just broke down the trades, like what we kind of thought mock packages would be for Blake Snell, Josh Hader, and we talked about Juan Soto. And I guess if you listen on podcast, I need to post the Juan Soto one. I totally forgot to, but we talked about Juan Soto. We basically said, like, look, they're probably not going to trade Juan Soto. Today, reports come out. Okay, it looks like Snell and Hader are on. It doesn't look like it. Snell and Hader are apparently officially on the block. That's what was reported, and they're not really looking to trade Juan Soto, which is basically what we kind of predicted. That's what we figured would be the case. And also, like, we'll get more into like the actual discussions of what it would look like and stuff, and see what you guys are thinking about it. But I think that one thing that's interesting is that we both think that Josh Hader is much more likely to be dealt than Blake Snell. So yeah, we'll get into that in a little bit. But Isaac, in terms of this past week, since our last live stream on Sunday, where it was a rough spot, losing 3 straight to the Phillies, including that doubleheader. How are you feeling this next week? I mean, basically everyone ahead of the Padres played pretty bad teams for the most part. Sucked this past week. Padres go 4-2. You feeling better? What are you thinking right now?
I think it could be two things at the same time. I think it could be both encouraging and discouraging, I guess you could say, because since the All-Star, what were they? How many games back were they at the All-Star break? 6.5 or so. They're back to being either 5.5 or 6.5 back, or 6, and that's discouraging in itself because you were hoping to catch some ground before the trade deadline, and now it's gone public that apparently the Padres are going to be shopping Hader and Snell. I don't think Snell's very likely, but you took 2 of 3 from a good Blue Jays team. Realistically, you could have swept, but it's back-to-back series where in the third game the offense couldn't find its identity. Today they only put up 1 run against the Tigers, against a guy that had pretty damn close to a 7 ERA to start the game. Hadn't gone a single outing without at least allowing 2 runs. Hadn't gone a single outing without he hadn't gotten to the 6th, I believe. So that's very discouraging. I realistically thought that, they looked so good the past 2 days that they could have swept this series and then swept the Pirates and we would have been good to go. But it's definitely a little bit of a disappointment seeing that they couldn't pull together a sweep against the Tigers, where you had a really advantageous matchup. Musgrove, he didn't pitch his best ball, but it was really only two solo shots and then play at the plate that Gary Sanchez didn't make. It was a winnable game. It was a very winnable game. They grounded into multiple double plays. Gary Sanchez popped up to end the game with 2 runners on. There were multiple occasions throughout the game where you could have said the Padres should have came through and they could have tied the game, if not won the game, and they didn't. So it's been encouraging that they've been putting up 6 runs a game this month. I mean, they've been one of the top offenses in baseball lately, but marginal gains aren't going to help us right now. They're not helping us at all. 4-2 over 2 series when you're down 6.5 games, that's not helping us. It's kind of just keeping you around the same pace that you've been throughout the season, which is more than 3-4 games under 500. That's what a mediocre team does. And the Padres, they've been playing really well, but they dug themselves in such a hole where a marginal gain does not do you any favors. This upcoming week, I think the first 2 games you got Darvish. What is it? Darvish, Snell, Lugo, I want to say it is. Darvish, Snell, Lugo against the Pirates. The Pirates have been one of the worst teams in baseball lately. Last I checked, they were 2-8 in their last 10, maybe 1-9. I don't know if they beat the Angels today or not. But last time we played them, they swept us. And that's one of the reasons why the Padres are in this hole, because they see these teams that aren't very good and they aren't able to pull off sweeps. They aren't even able to pull off series wins. Now you're in a situation, you're 6.5 back. You got to get a sweep. You have to get a sweep against the Pirates. and you have to take the series against the Rangers. You got to go 5-1 over these next 6 to really say we're not selling, or to say we're minorly selling. The Rangers aren't going to be playing with. They're going to be playing without Corey Seager, their best hitter. So that's a good thing. But in that series, you don't want to give up a single game by having to throw Jackson Wolf in there, or having to throw Reese Kinnear hit the 60, or Ryan Weathers. Like, you need to, like Matt and I have already talked about it. If you're gonna buy at the deadline, maybe it should be for a starter. Maybe it should be for a starter for now while Walk is out, and hopefully Walk is back by the series, but I don't see it happening. And you should buy a starter and move Lugo to the pen. But yeah, I think this past week was both encouraging and discouraging at the same time. Encouraging because you won both series. You've won 5 of your last 6 series. But discouraging because they're only marginal gains. You're not making up much ground.
Yeah, and I feel like it makes this next series kind of a lot. There's a lot more pressure because they win the first 2 in this past series against the Tigers, and it was like, okay, Sunday's like, you look at the pitching slate, and you're like, Sunday's an easy dub. You have Musgrove; he's been dealing as good as basically anyone outside of Snell. And then you have a guy that has almost a 7 ERA, and he shits on him. Like, so, and the problem is that, like, the discouraging part is, like, it almost feels like it's the same story. You put up 14 runs, and then you come back the next day, and he went 6 scoreless? Was that right? I forget. I know they scored, but I think it was in the 7th, I want to say. So, like, it is definitely discouraging. Even though you're winning series, it still feels discouraging because it's like you need to make up these games. And you look at the standings, and every day we're talking about this, dude. Cincinnati's been playing really good. They've won 5 straight. Arizona's lost 4 straight. San Francisco's lost 5. They just got swept by the Nationals. Miami won today, but Miami had lost like 7 games in a row or something ridiculous. The Phillies have been losing a bunch. They won today. But like, these teams that are ahead, that are in this wild card spot, are not winning. And even a more important part of this is that the Padres are 6 games back of a wild card spot, right? Well, they're 6 games back from the second wild card spot, and they're 6.5 from the first wild card spot. There are 3 wild card spots that are very open right now. Like, a lot of times you look at it, and let's see what the AL looks like, just because I want to get like the flip side. AL, Tampa is the leading wild card spot, but Tampa is like almost a lock to make the playoffs. I mean, you guys know how they started their season; they were ridiculous, unless they really fall apart. But like, they have 61 games won. Like, they're 6 games or 5 games ahead of the third wild card spot team, which is the Blue Jays. So like, you look at the AL, and like, it's so drastically different, where it's like you're not really chasing those guys. You're only chasing 2 wild card spots. Every spot's open. You play games against all these teams. Like, you can make up, if you make up a little bit of ground. The difference right now of being like 6 games and 4 games is blowing a couple. Like, or I guess 5 games is blowing these 2 other games, where it's like you can't afford to do it. You win a few of those, and it ends up being such a better spot where you're just like, all right, like, this team looks like they're in a much better position now. So it is frustrating because, like, you look at these last 2 series this week, and obviously, like, the Blue Jays, like, I feel like the Blue Jays it was good to take 2 out of 3. That was an accomplishment. But the Tigers series, like, dude, you got to take the extra game. You got to come to this Pirates series down by 5, like 5 games back of basically every single spot, and you sweep the Pirates and you go back-to-back sweeps. You might be 3 games out of a wild card spot. That's completely different, it feels like. So it is a little bit frustrating. And I think it's interesting. Jackson Wolf, I mean, he didn't pitch like a bad game or anything, but we were talking about it like he did not look good. You don't want that dude starting for you. You don't want Ryan Weathers starting for you. So, like, you need Walker to get healthy. The starting pitching depth is not there. There's a lot of questions with the bullpen. The hitting has been really good. There's been a couple times where it's been bad, but overall the hitting's been really good over the past like month and a half to 2 months, which is a great turnaround. But then the bullpen starts struggling. Robert Suarez came in the series. He looked really good, I thought. Looked like normal Robert Suarez, which, I mean, it was kind of like, oh, God, like, you looked at his rehab outing, and it wasn't that good. You can't really put too much stock into those, but, like, you wanted to see him look good, and I felt like he looked pretty good. His velo was up still, so it looked like he was fine. Only other thing that I'm thinking of this series that really stands out to me, besides the classic put up 14 runs and put up 1 run the next day, which is like, that's the part that I think is driving everyone crazy, is how inconsistent this team is. But we were talking about this on our group chat earlier. and I saw someone actually in the chat say mentioned something as well, but why is Matt Carpenter DHing a day after Luis Campusano goes 4 for 5 with home run and a bunch of hits, multiple RBI? What do you have, 4 RBIs? Like, why is he not the DH on an off day? And I was told on Twitter that apparently it's because he caught back-to-back games, so he couldn't DH. I mean, I don't know, Isaac, you tell me, but did he skip batting practice too? Because that makes no sense to me. That makes no sense. And I saw one thing that people were like, well, if Gary Sanchez got hurt, then you'd have to move him in, and then it would be like the pitcher would hit. It's like, okay, then you just pinch hit a couple times. I don't think that's even that. Like, you're throwing Carpenter out there. When is the last? Can you think of the last time when Carpenter got a hit?
Dude, well, I checked his stats today. He's batting around 100 over his last 30 games. He doesn't have a home run over his last 30 games. He has 4 home runs on the season. Honestly, don't remember his last home run. But it's been a really long time. So he's just been a very invaluable player. I mean, we were DHing Gary Sanchez when he wasn't catching. So I don't understand some of the arguments, but Campusano off a 4-hit day should absolutely be in the lineup as a DH. Maybe Sanchez should catch tomorrow too if they're that worried about a workload for a guy coming back. But yeah, Campusano definitely shouldn't have been in the lineup, especially on his last at bat where Carpenter was up. I don't know if he had runners on or not, but I mean, every single one of his at bats are non-competitive at bats, non-competitive swings. He's getting gassed up by guys. I mean, one of the guys he faced was pumping kind of high velocity, but it's clear that Matt Carpenter is pretty outmatched, and we shouldn't be relying on him in big spots, let alone any sort of spot in general. 3 for his last 35. I don't know what the average is there, but it is around 100. So, yeah, I mean, there's only a few options. It's A, cut your ties. B, keep him on and let him continue sucking. But I think this has got to be the time where AJ Preller is willing to swallow his pride, stop having such a big ego, and cut your ties. DFA him. Send him off in a trade where you pay half his contract. I don't know what it is, but you got to do whatever it takes to get him off your roster to open that spot for someone that could actually produce in your lineup, that could actually be of value, because we brought him on to be a DH. He's batting over, I don't know, somewhere around 100 over his last 30 games. So he's not a good DH. He doesn't play defense. He's not a good runner. Provides you zero value. That's what Nelson Cruz was cut for. That is what Matt Carpenter should be cut for as well. But going back to, you know, how many games back we are, we're looking at, in our race, we got the Reds, the Diamondbacks, Giants, Phillies, Marlins, Cubs, Padres. Cubs, they'll fall off. I just think they're having a hot stretch right now, and they might trade Bellinger. But you look at the rest, it's like the Diamondbacks and the Giants still play each other a couple times. We still play both teams a few times. We still play the Phillies. The Phillies and the Marlins still play each other. Like, we still have a chance, and I understand it's an outsider's chance, and I'm not holding on to hope saying, like, still be hopeful or we're for sure going to do it. But I could see a scenario why the Padres won't be sellers, like all in on selling Blake Snell, selling Josh Hader, and putting Soto on the block. That makes no sense. Just Josh Hader makes sense. But the rest, maybe it's not control your own destiny, but in a way it is for how many times you still play these teams. You still play the Giants in, let me see. I know in August you play the Diamondbacks 7 times. You still play the Giants 7 times. You got 14 games against those two combined. You should be able to hopefully pull out at least 4 against each. If you do that, you're looking a little better. You still play the Phillies in another series. You play the Marlins, I think 6 times. I don't know what it is, but you're not completely out of it. The difference is the Reds have had their hot stretch. They've cooled off, even though they just started getting a little hot again. The Giants have had their hot stretch. They've cooled off. The Phillies had their hot stretch. They've cooled off. I mean, it's only 1 or 2 series. They've cooled off a little bit. Every team that's in the race right now has had their hot stretch except for the Padres. So we're still waiting on the Padres to have that hot stretch that we've been waiting for a long time. And quite frankly, we still don't know if it's going to happen. For all we know, this could be what they are. An under 500 team could realistically be what they are. but there's still 2 months for them to show that that's not what they are. In baseball, you only need 1 or 2 good months, really good months, to propel you into the playoff, to push you into the playoffs. The Padres have still yet to have that. Last year, they had a really good start to the season and were average, below average for the rest of the season, got them into the playoffs, got to the NLCS. This year, we could be looking at a team that gets hot in August or September and makes the playoffs, pushes themselves into the playoffs. If you guys haven't seen the end of season schedule, it's from September 15th onward. It's Athletics, Rockies, Cardinals, Giants, White Sox. Those are multiple very winnable series at the end of the season where you're saying, hey, Padres are only 3 games back with this many games left. If they do win all these series and they're in the playoffs, now they're going into the season. Now they're going into the playoffs as the hottest team there. So I don't think it's reasonable to, completely be sold on the idea of selling Blake Snell. Josh Hader, I understand. Josh Hader, what you could realistically do is sell him, buy a few bullpen arms, 2 or 3, if not a starter, and now you're looking at a much more formidable bullpen and maybe another starter in the rotation. Maybe go after a DH. I don't know what it is you do, but they have multiple games against all these teams, and they have a really easy stretch at the end of the season. So not that I'm trying to be completely optimistic, but I'm trying to give you guys reason as to why they won't be complete sellers, why I understand that. If they were in the 2021 stretch where they had the hardest schedule from like the middle of August onward, then I would understand. But it's really not that bad.
No, and I agree with you too, man, because I think and you brought this up, we were talking about it before, you could, and because this kind of goes into trading it, and Lizzie said this right here, the lack of a hot stretch tells me we should look towards 2024. The thing that's cool about it is that you trade Hader and you retool a little bit, you can do that as well. Like, you don't have to, you can move on and be like, hey, it doesn't make sense. We're not going to pay Hader, $100 million over 5 years or probably 4 years. I don't know, man. He's probably going to make a lot. He's probably going to make a ton of money. We don't want to pay him. We traded really low when we traded for him. We can get probably better pieces back. We had him last playoff run. Okay, we get all these prospects. Let's just go trade for some decent arms. Then we don't have to keep throwing Nick Martinez in high leverage spots. We can have Wilson, Cosgrove is kind of like the early guys. Maybe Suarez closes if he's good. Add a couple arms, have a deeper bullpen, and you're still netting a bunch of prospects. You could even trade for a DH or a different bat off the side, and all of a sudden, that's good. That helps a lot more for this year and for next. And you're making your team better, and you're probably improving the farm as well. I see a lot of people being like, feeling the same way about Snell. The only reason I don't know if it's worth it to trade Snell is I would rather them extend Blake Snell. We said that when we were talking about potential trades that they could do. And that was something that I brought up was they should try to extend him. I would rather them try to extend him. So that's my thought with him. And the thing is, you do look at this team because I see JDS says all of a sudden we're going to start beating bad teams. Yeah, we lost to a lot of teams. That was also a month and a half ago. They've been playing pretty good for a while now. Pretty good isn't going to get it done. That's what Isaac's saying. You can't just be yeah, we're playing pretty decent baseball. But what was the record you said? You need it was a 60 winning percentage to finish 88 wins or something, which should pretty much guarantee you to make the playoffs. They've been doing that for a little bit now, or been just under that. So you got to be hot, you have to. But I also I don't think that they're not going to sell all the way. I also don't want them to sell all the way. If you sell all the way and you sell Blake Snell and you don't have an extra starter, you're throwing away half a season with the core that you have. Even if you don't have that crazy good of a chance, you have a 30% chance to make the playoffs right now. And you're looking at all the teams ahead of them, and they're all falling apart outside the Reds. I think the Reds, but then the Brewers are there. You play the Brewers too. You play, and the Brewers and the Reds are a half game difference, and one of them's top in the wild card, one of them is the division leader. So the Giants have one of the worst schedules to close out the season, and they're already playing complete shit lately. So I think the Giants are probably going to fall off. I think the Phillies are a pretty good team. I think the Reds are good. There's definitely a way that they make the playoffs. Is it a lock? No. But I mean, they've been playing better. And like, yes, I think the only thing that drives me crazy like lately is just like the inconsistency. Like we saw like these past 2 series. Like you go and you won 2 series, but like you could have easily swept. You should have won today. Like forget that. Like you should have won all 3 of those games. And now it goes to the Pirates, and now it's like, well, winning 2 might not even feel like enough because you're going 4 out of 2. You're only going 2 games over against the Tigers and the Pirates. Like, no, you need to win more of those games. So we need to see more sweeps. We saw it with the Angels. We saw them beat the Mets. Like we just saw some like promising stuff, and then they choked against the Phillies 3 straight games. They choked against them. They got it. Like, and the other thing, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, they could also just completely fall off the wheels. Like, someone could get hurt, Walker might not come back, and then you keep throwing like Weathers and Jackson Wolf, and it's just like not looking good. Like that could be the case. But I think trading Hader, hanging on the Snell, trying to extend Snell, because I mean, Snell's comments were pretty clear, pretty obvious that he would be open to staying here. If you just listen to what he said, like he's like, yeah, like I want to be here. I don't want to be traded. So they offer him a contract? I mean, they easily could. He could also leave, but I don't think it's just like a lock that he's gone. Where I feel like, and maybe it's not a lock that Hader's gone either. But the way that just my thoughts is that I feel like Hader's gone. That's been my thought. So, and I think you can trade Hader and you can honestly become a more well-rounded team, and also stop adding Carp at DH. For God's sake, man, please.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't feel like the Padres are in a position where they just give up on the season, where it's like I said, it's not fully in their control, but there's this way to get in there. I know it's not very likely, but I mean, let's say they do trade Snell, they do trade Hader for prospects. We actually think they're going to develop those prospects. Is it actually going to be helpful for the Padres to trade for those prospects? And do we actually believe, with their history, that they're going to turn them into valuable players? No. Nothing has showed us that they will turn them into valuable players. We just had Jackson Wolf throwing, 92, 93 in the minors, come up, and he was getting a lot of hype from people on Twitter. He came up, and he started throwing 89 miles per hour, had, 1 or 2 whiffs, and he didn't get his first strikeout till 70 pitches in. If you, against the Tigers, sure, it'll pass. It only allowed 3 runs in 5 innings. Against the Dodgers, against a good team, dude, that might be 15 runs. So, no, I don't have a lot of confidence that the Padres can develop players like that. Lesko, I think, will be great. Salas, I think, will be great. But other than that, I just don't think the Padres are in a position where they can say, yeah, let's just get prospects and let's hope that it works for the future. Because it might not. Like, either way, keeping Snell, keeping Hader, yeah, it might not work in the future. It might not benefit us in the future, but who's to say that trading for these prospects that, quite frankly, have a much higher buzz potential than they do a positive turnout helps us in the future either. Like, I just don't see it. Yeah, so I think trading Hader's fine. Trading Hader, it's okay. You can get guys in the bullpen. You can create a formidable bullpen. Trading Soto makes 0 sense. Snell, sure, it makes some sense, but if you're going to go on a run, you're going to want to have one of the best pitchers in baseball lately in your rotation, which is Blake Snell. So I understand people don't really see that there's a road to the playoffs. The Padres have the 14th or the 15th toughest schedule from here on out, middle of the pack. But they've been playing better lately. They still haven't gone on a hot stretch. And like I said before, who's to say they will? We don't know if they're actually that, like, everything up to now proves they aren't that good. Everything up till August showed that the 2021 Braves weren't that good too. There was a stretch for the Padres that last year that showed they aren't that good. Same thing for the Nationals. Same thing for so many other teams that have ended up winning the World Series or making the playoffs. The Cardinals in 2021 were the same thing when they got in over us because we got so cold. The saying is always that you would rather your team get hot in August and September than get hot in April and May. That's what everyone says. I just don't get why we're not in that same boat. So I don't know. I don't feel like the Padres should be in a position to fully sell. I think they should buy/sell, which is what we've been saying for a while. So I don't think we should completely write them off. They've been playing a lot better lately. Bogarts is starting to actually hit. Machado's hot. Soto's hot. Tadi's kind of going through a cold streak. He hasn't been hitting for much power, but I think he'll get hot. Kim is hot. I mean, guys are hot almost all throughout the lineup. Most of your spots are guys that are doing pretty good. Trent Grisham is hot. So starting pitching's fine. It's just a bullpen that's been giving up some games. If you get a formidable bullpen, you're looking at a team that could actually go on a win streak and say, hey, we're getting hot at the right time. But I don't know. It feels like we're all so set on selling these guys after winning 2 straight series and 5 of the last 6.
No, I think it's true. I see. What did I see? A question. Corbin asked what we think of Jackson Wolf's performance. We kind of said it just a second ago, but like, not really promising. He's throwing 89 and generating almost no whiffs. Like he looks all right, like numbers wise, but throwing 89 and not. I think he generated 1 or 2 whiffs all game in 5 innings. That's rough. That's really rough. I see. What was someone else said something? Oh, we're talking about developing players. And then someone said, is it Kerstad? I think that's the guy we were talking about with Snell. I think that he's pretty sure he's the Orioles prospect. The thing is like most prospects don't pan out. Like I feel like that's the thing is like there's times to do it and there's times not to, but like this whole idea that you're just gonna get this prospect and it's like, yeah, he's gonna plug and he's gonna play this spot. Like is Yohan Moncada, right? Yohan, that's how you pronounce it. He was the number 1 prospect over Tatis. He's not a good player. He sucks. He was the number 1 prospect. So you just get all these like top 50 guys. It doesn't really mean all that much. And guys go so up and down with prospects. I mean, you remember when this is a while back, but remember when the Padres sold a while back? They sell their top closer in the game. Who was it? Who did they trade for Mejia? Because they get Mejia. He's like 35th prospect.
Mejia was the Brad Hand trade.
The Brad Hand. And Brad Hand was dealing that year. He was a beast. Mejia didn't turn into anything. Like,
same thing.
Franchi Cordero. Remember how much hype Franchi Cordero had? And obviously it started to die down. But when he was younger, it was crazy hype. Franchi Cordero hits like, I don't even know if he hits 100, if he's hitting 100 this year for the Yankees. Like
that trade for the Red Sox where we got Javi Guerra, Manuel Margot, like that didn't work out either.
Yeah, it's just like, it's just hard to like, it's just hard. Like, I don't know. I just think like, just like this idea of like selling and then like we're going to do whatever. Like, I like the idea of selling Hader and trying to retool your team for this year and next year. Like, where it's something where like you're going and getting like, okay, like, I mean, we talked about him a bunch, but like, I think Brandon Drury's on a 2-year contract or 3-year contract, I want to say. That would be like an intriguing piece. You know what I mean? Oh, we're going to go get Drury. And like, obviously they're not going to do it because there's no way players are going to be like, well, I had the chance to pay Drury or Carpenter. I paid Carpenter and now I'm going to trade for Drury. They're just not going to do it because it looks bad, which is stupid. It's a horrible reason to not do it, but they're not going to. But that type of player where it's like you're getting someone, I'd rather them do someone cheap. Like Joey Meneses, right? Not really that great of a player. Guess what? He's a sure of a hell lot better than Matt Carpenter. Like, so there's just so many little things you can do where it's like, yeah, you go trade for that guy. You're going to get the team better this year. He has multiple years of control. Be better for years to come. And what are you going to do? Give away a 15 to 25th prospect in your farm for him? Like, that's not even like, I'm not like trying to like have them like go and like sell or like go and like buy super heavy, but
yeah,
you can end up being a seller at the deadline and come away with a better team.
Yeah,
because
100%.
the holes are so glaring, right? Like that's what we've noted. The holes are horrible.
That's the thing is you know what's wrong. You know what you need in order to fix the team going forward. I just I see people saying, well, talking about prospects, like why wouldn't we trade for prospects? It just we're not in the same position as teams that are actually bad. Like we're in a position where we need a win now. We have to. We can't wait and hope prospects just pan out. Machado's not getting any younger. Bogarts is not getting any younger. Soto's only guaranteed to be here for another year. Tatis is not getting any younger. Like, we have to win right now. Prospects that aren't going to be ready for another few years, hopefully they would be next year, but prospects that aren't going to be ready for another few years, they do not help us right now. The whole purpose of buying was and creating this team was to be able to win right now. And whether we like it or not, like, everyone's still going to the games, everyone's still giving them a lot of revenue. So in that aspect, it's working. But I don't know. I don't know why everyone's so ready to just give up. I mean, there's been so many instances where teams have been able to come back and it ended up making a run and ended up going to the World Series or whatever it is. I'm just not a fan of getting and garnering, like, just getting all these prospects or getting prospects that people are talking about. And then what are we gonna do if they don't pan out? We're screwed. We're screwed for even. I think we're screwed even more so if they don't end up panning out. So I understand they do have to get some guys on cheap contracts, develop guys to become valuable players on cheap contracts. They do have to do that. That's their whole intention. That's what they want to do. That was the whole reason that they've been giving big contracts to certain people, because they want to be able to surround them with guys that are going to be cheap and they're going to help. Hence the reason why they're probably going to keep Jackson Merrill, why they got Ethan Salas, why they got Dylan Lesko, like why they are so heavy in the international market. They're getting DeVries, like, who's going to be probably one of the top 5 prospects in baseball. They're doing their job when it comes to that aspect of it, when it comes to prospects. But realistically, Hader, what's he going to net you? Is Hader actually going to get you a prospect that could be valuable by next year? I mean, maybe. Jack Leiter is a guy we've been talking about, but he's barely in the top 100 prospects, and he hasn't been very good. Snell, I just don't see them trading Snell, and if they do, who knows what they'll get out of him. But I don't know. I don't feel ready to be all in on this idea of getting prospects and hoping they pan out. If you look at all the trades that have been made for superstars, more often than not, the team that trades for the star ends up winning that trade. So I don't know. I don't think it's a smart idea to trade for prospects that aren't guaranteed to pan out.
Yeah, and also see people talking about, like, hey, like I think it was No Name over here. He said, like, so you're saying, like, the rationale is to not invest in prospects so they have a high bust rate. That's really not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say I don't think it's worth, and this is more for Snell, I don't think it's worth trading a guy and selling a whole second half of a season when you do have a chance. Like, to act like there's no chance is just not true. What you need to see is you need to see this team play better. That's what we need. That is very obvious. But they have been showing signs of improvement, and there's been a lot of that. There's still inconsistencies. It's still very frustrating at times. Like, today was a very frustrating game. But trade Snell for some guy that's like, are you getting a top 40 prospect for, I mean, probably a top 40 prospect, top 50 prospect for half a year of Snell and some other couple, like, random guys? I'd rather just try to extend Snell, man. Like, you're going to, like, I would much, that just makes way more sense to me. Like, he seems like he's a guy that wants to be here. Like, I would rather just hang on to the good player. Hader, if Hader's going to walk, you can 100% flip Hader and try to turn that into other things. And you could do it for Snell, too. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying that it's a little bit tough when you're looking at it, like, from that. So, I don't know, man. I think it's hard to tell, like, what they're going to do. I think it's going to be, I mean, we think, I don't know if it's hard to tell. We can tell that they're going to probably do something along the lines of, like, kind of buy, kind of sell. And it just seems like if you're just going to, like, sell and give up on the season, that doesn't really make much sense. I don't know why you would want to do that. I think that you can sell some. I mean, we talked about, like, what you would get for the, like, for them. Dude, if you can get, like, I don't know if this would be part of it. I don't know what it would look like, but, like, there's so many guys that, like, you just go and get this random bat and then it fixes your lineup. You guys remember when the Braves won the World Series and the guy they traded for was the worst outfielder in the MLB, and he had not played good in terms of fielding, the worst outfielder in the MLB, and then he went on a godly postseason run. They snuck in, they barely made it, and Eddie Rosario was like a king for the whole season because it was like out of the blue, Eddie Rosario just got super hot. Like you can always do stuff like that, and it's not like you have to go. What did the Braves pay for Eddie Rosario, man? Like I want to look that up because it's probably nothing. And like maybe it's something worth like maybe it's a decent guy, but like most of the time when you see that, like a lot of them are just like they're rough. Um, yeah, I definitely agree with this too. All prospects aren't the same. And that's why I think it depends too for these guys. Like you're only talking about trading rentals away. So it's not like you're gonna get like some massive package like the Padres traded away for Juan Soto. Yeah, the Orioles farm is absolutely bananas. Everyone is in AAA with a 900 OPS. I would love to be in the Orioles spot. I'm not disagreeing, man. I would love to be in the Orioles spot. Like they
Me
look like
too.
they're so set, but the Padres just don't really have any prospects that are coming up. So you could make the argument too. That's like you need to get more young talent, and we've been hoping for that they would do that. That's why some of these trades, some of these guys, like giving Matt Carpenter at bats when you can just call guys up from AAA. I'd rather do that, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, dude, I don't understand. We just understand we didn't sweep the Tigers, but it's not like it's the end of the world. Yeah, you're sick. What, 6 games back right now? I feel like I said earlier, in baseball, you only need one or two good series or 1 or 2 good months to really make the playoffs. It seems like every single person in baseball outside of Bob Nightingale and Padres fans still think the Padres are going to get hot. So I don't know, something tells me that they're going to be fine. I understand. I remember when the Padres had the top farm in baseball. What'd it do?
to
They
be
go.
fair, well, I
They
guess
traded all the
which
guys.
time? Which time though, right? Because they
It should have
tried to
been
do it the
new.
first
Yeah,
time, it just didn't work.
it just didn't work. So that's what I'm saying, man. Is like trading rentals for prospects that you hope are end up. I mean, sure, it could be a good bet. I mean, it could end up working out for you, but if the whole thing I'm trying to say is that the Padres put a lot into this season, hoping that they would make the playoffs. A lot of their revenue um, was going to be generated through home playoff games. They're still hoping to have home playoff games, and I just don't feel like they're in a position to say, we're just going to sell and give up. Guys, they're selling out the stadium night after night after night. If they sell both Snell and Hader, that is waving the white flag. They will not be selling out the stadium night after night after night anymore. So I just don't think they're going to do it. They're still making money. Despite what everyone in here is saying, you're still giving them your money. So I am too. But it just, I don't know. They're generating success in that aspect. It's just on the field, they're not really performing as well as we had hoped. They went through a really cold stretch from May to June, and it put them in a really bad spot. But they went through a really bad stretch last year where they went like 37-42 at one point, maybe even worse. And they still made the playoffs because they had a really good month or two. It still could happen. Like they have the rotation. The rotation has been fine. The lineup has been fine lately. It's just the bullpen. The bullpen has been blowing everything. But what's the easiest thing to acquire at the deadline? It's the bullpen. The bullpen arms are always the easiest thing to acquire at the deadline. So, I mean, I can understand selling Hader. Sure, maybe you could sell Snell. But Soto doesn't make any sense. You could still be good next year. Kim, it wouldn't make any sense. You could still be good next year. I mean, there's only so many guys we could sell that it would actually make sense.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I'm down to. I think selling Hader makes a lot of sense. So that's the big guy. I think that I feel like that's the dude. Like if you're gonna sell in some aspects, sell him. Try to improve. Try to have a deeper bullpen. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like here's the thing. If they trade Snell, they're gonna be fucked unless they have some type of plan to get another starter. So if they don't trade Snell, they hang on to him. They try to extend him. Say he walks. It could bite you. Don't get me wrong, because I saw people talking about the Clevenger trade, about Josh Naylor. Bro, I mean, that was just a stupid trade. Clev got hurt like 2 starts in, bro, and then he was horrible. It was not good after that. So that was, I mean, that's an example of what like could happen if they do trade, like in the reverse, right? So of course it's like, yeah, you can do that, but it's just like also like I don't know, man. That one was also crazy. Like we gave up so much. That was also a bet, dude. That's probably got to be one of the most ugly deadlines ever for the Padres. The Nola and the Clev trade in the 60-game season. Why? Like so many guys. You traded Ty France and Naylor, bro. Like that's your first base DH duo right there. You rock with those guys. We're chilling. All the late game heroics from Josh Naylor. Are you kidding me? Just having those two guys would change a lot. So like I get both sides of it. I really do. But like, and also like one other thing is like, I think like I feel like Naylor was good here too. Like Isaac, did you feel like that? Like I never thought like Naylor sucked. Like
No,
some
no,
guys.
Naylor. That's the thing. Naylor was actually good here. He's had a few moments where he had a few moments in a Padres uniform where he looked like a really competent hitter. He was never a bad hitter. It was just in that situation, Chris Paddock wasn't doing good. The only good pitchers that year were Zach Davies and Dinelson Lamet. Dinelson Lamet ended up getting hurt. Mike Clevenger ended up getting hurt. Really, the only loss in that trade was probably Josh Naylor. People will say Cal Quantrill, but I didn't really mind losing Cal Quantrill. I mean, I haven't heard much of him this season.
Probably better than Clev.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess all the prospect talk. I'll circle it back to one thing, and this is the last point I want to make, and then we'll probably dip out of here. Luis Campusano needs to get everyday at bats. If you're talking about getting ready for 2024, stuff like that, getting prospects, whatever, you actually have a bat that's producing at the MLB level, and he's looking good as a catcher. You need to have him catch, and when he's not catching, he needs to DH almost every single night because there's no reason to not have him getting everyday at bats. He goes 4 for 5 and gets benched the next day. Bro, why? Why does that doesn't make any sense? We need Campy to get more at bats. So if you're looking at, you're talking about like preparing for 2024 and that like, like resetting and stuff like that, you can do it internally by giving Luis Campusano at bats. Look how horrible the Padres catcher position has been this year. And Gary Sanchez has been, he's been okay. He doesn't really hit for a good average, but provides a little bit of pop. He's been a good fielder. But no, like we really need Campy to get everyday at bats. It's insane that he's not, and it honestly pisses me off so much whenever I see it because that's always the problem. Is like, oh, the Padres can't get these guys to figure it out at the MLB level. It's like, yeah, because they play like every third day. That's what they kept doing with Campy when they called him up in the past, and they're like, he's just not figuring it out. It's like, yeah, no shit, man. He's not on the field. Like, what do you expect? So that'll be my last piece. Is I want Luis Campusano to get way more at bats. So, anything else you got, Isaac?
Yeah, and rightfully so. You got to get guys in there that A, will actually provide you quality at bats, and B, will actually need the at bats to be important pieces for the future. Matt Carpenter doesn't do that. He's not going to give you quality at bats, nor is he going to be an important part of the future. Yeah, that's about it, though. I mean, I understand everyone wants to sell. It seems like everyone is really, really, really sold on selling. It's so funny. But and I'm not like completely opposed to like I'm opposed to completely selling. I'm opposed to selling the guys and waving the white flag essentially. I'm not opposed to selling Hader and still buying. Like a sell buy situation is basically what everyone has been saying the Padres are probably going to do. So I'm not opposed to that. Like I said, they're not just going to give up on the season. Like I'm trying to be realistic. Like I know what they're probably plan on doing. But yeah, we'll see how it goes throughout this Pirates and Rangers series. You gotta hope they at least, I mean, minimum 4, but you would ideally like for them to take 5 of the next 6.
Yeah. Also, I said this before. Eddie Rosario trade. Want to know what he was traded for? He was traded for Pablo Sandoval, who never played a game again, in cash. That was the trade. That was one of the best deadline trades in a long time, bro. That's insane. So like, obviously that's like a hard one. That's like the best scenario. But like to act like you can't just make a tiny little move that you're giving up practically nothing just to retool a little bit. Like you got to do that. You have to do that in some capacity. Does that mean trading Hater away and getting prospects and improving your farm? Yeah, sure. I'm with that. But you can also do other little things. You can go trade for a random reliever that's going to be better than what you got, and it might translate a lot more into wins. Real quick before you go though, they just get a super chat. Thank you, No Name, right here. I'm just really envious of all the young talent on Cincy. Young talent can change the dynamic of MLB clubhouse, dude. 100%.
Yeah, of
Not
course.
just Cincy, the Orioles and the Diamondbacks, bro. Like watching
Yeah.
Corbin Carroll, it's like shit, man. Like,
Yeah, of course. You just need that one name that's really going to propel you over the top. For us, that was Fernando at one point. But for them, yeah, Corbin Carroll, uh, Spencer Steer, Ellie De La Cruz. Shoot, what was that dude? Oh my God, why can't I remember? Matt McClain. Matt McClain. Yeah, it's great for them to have all that young talent. I think they're going to be good. Of course, we're very envious of it too. Like they're actually developing players and they're actually a good team and they're ahead of us. But the thing is that usually doesn't happen for us. So that's why I'm a little opposed to it.
how about a Ethan Salas shout out right now? 3 years, bro. 4 years. Then we'll get our young talent.
Yeah.
But no, it's true. I mean, it's very fair to be like envious of all those teams. Like I mean, it's a fun watch when you go watch those teams play. Like the Orioles, dude, probably like everyone in Maryland is probably like any Oriole fan out there is probably so hyped. Like, dude, this team is gonna be so good for so long. They're all coming up in like 2 year gap. It's insane. They have the bet. They just beat the Rays 3 out of 4 games. So yeah, dude, I'm jealous. I'm jealous of those guys too, man. I'm super jealous, but and you got to yeah. So I don't know. I definitely think there's a point to each one. Is Sauce's ETA really 2028?
Yeah, right. It's going to be like 2025, 2024.
That'd
No,
be
not
next
24.
year.
Probably like 26.
26, yeah. I feel like that's still pretty early.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just we never have a good catcher, so it'd be nice. The sooner the better.
And they like rushing guys.
Yeah, they always do it.
Except for Campy, bro. They just fucking hate Campy. I don't get it, man. I just want to see him get some at bats.
I know.
You look great this weekend, but yeah. All right, guys. I think that's gonna do it. Thank you all for joining. Had a fun time talking. It's interesting to hear that where people are at, like kind of different opinions. It'll be fun to revisit like a month after the trade deadline to see what I mean, and during the trade deadline too, of course. Like, but they do something, they do buy a little bit, and then it backfires. Like, dude, it could 100% happen.
Yeah.
So it's a weird spot to be in, especially like when you're just sitting a few back because it's like you want to make the push, but also like at what cost and what cost for the future.
For sure, yeah.
There's a lot of like aspects to it as well. A lot of discussions to be had about it, but I think I'll do it for today. So we'll have some episodes out later this week and hopefully be back next Sunday as well, streaming Sunday night. So thank you guys all for listening. And hopefully we get the second sweep of the Padres series against the Pirates coming up, but we will see. It's been a tough one to come by, but yeah, I think it's going to do it. So we'll see y'all soon. Have a great night and see you.